For this comparison, I chose to look at two cases involving sports injuries that occurred during games on school property. The first case was Thomas v. the Board of Education of the City of Hamilton, and the second was Rees v. the Toronto District School Board. I chose these cases because while I was never severely injured playing sports during my school years, I can relate to the students that were injured and never really thought about what might happen if I did get seriously hurt in a school setting while this was occurring. It's interesting to look at the ramifications and possible outcomes of if these kinds of events were to occur. They are significant to me as a teacher because I plan on coaching a wide variety of sports teams during my career, and they deal with negligence and standards of care, which are two potentially huge issues anyone might have to deal with while teaching. In Thomas v. Hamilton, a 16-year-old broke his neck playing football, and the board and the teachers were sued as a result of the injury due to alleged negligence. The family contended that because of the boy's neck configuration, he has what was termed a long, lean swan neck, that there was an increased exposure to injury and the board and coaches should have known better and not allowed him to play. The parties were not found to be responsible or negligent because they were not made aware of this potential issue by the family. The boy was taught proper tackling methods, and he and his mother had already consented to the potential danger of playing a contact sport by signing a waiver. In my opinion, I agree that all the parties were not negligent, that being the board and the teachers who were being sued, because they were not made aware of the potential danger due to the structure of the student's neck and did not break the standard of care as outlined in our ethics and legal studies readings. The teachers stated that had they known of the condition, they would not have played the student and taught him proper tackling methods, which I believe fits for the careful parent rule. They also acted in this manner after the injury occurred. No standard of care was broken, and therefore none of the parties should be held responsible. The second case also deals with negligence and a sports injury, but has very different circumstances. In Reed v. TDSB, Stacy Rees dislocated her kneecap after falling on it trying to give a teammate a congratulatory bump after winning a point while playing a volleyball game. The Rees party thought that the board was negligent because her team was not provided with proper safety gear, which would be knee pads in this case, and they did not have a signed permission form from her mother to play on the team, yet allowed her to play anyway. They also believed the coach was negligent in driving her home after the injury instead of taking her to the hospital. This case ended up going to a jury, and many of the circumstances were questionable. For example, the board was unable to provide proof they received a permission form, yet claimed they did, while the Rees family submitted that they never gave a form back to the coach. Unlike in the previous case, I believe the board and the coach were negligent for a number of reasons and also took part in unethical actions. They were unable to produce a permission form signed by Stacy's mother, which means she should not have been playing until written permission was granted. The board is also responsible for the supervision and safety of all students, which they could have improved by providing knee pads after requests were made by the team. The biggest issue in this case to me, though, is the coach driving the student anywhere after the injury occurred, never mind home, but instead of the hospital at the least. With such a severe injury, Stacy should have been checked out by a medical professional, and it is unethical that the coach, who was a teacher at the school, drove her home. By not having a medical professional look at Stacy, I believe the teacher failed in her duty of care because the injury happened on school grounds and during a school team game. In our readings, it clearly states that teachers should notify the administration immediately and get the student to the hospital. So even if the teacher drove the student to the hospital, which I still think has questionable ethical issues, the teacher in this case or the coach drove her home, which was not the best method in my opinion. The coach also did not fit the bill of loco parentis and broke the local parent rule. This occurred after the injury, though, and therefore should not factor into negligence, in my opinion, as it did not get more severe by not being checked out at that time. Finally, I believe there was also some student liability that contributed to the negligence. In this case, I think that the student should have been held liable a certain percentage due to her celebration, but because of her age, it's difficult to determine how much, if at all, she should be held accountable for her actions. In this case, it might be argued that because of her age and being a student while playing sports, it was an adequate means of celebration. These cases fascinate me because they are two terrible injuries, both of which occurred due to unfortunate accidents. The fascinating part comes from my belief that in the Rees instance, the board was negligent, but the student also contributed to her injury, while in the Thomas case, no one was negligent and the student had no real part in the injury. Honestly, I have no idea how these should be sorted out when it comes to a discipline hearing, and it goes to show how difficult these decisions can be for everyone involved. Negligence, as defined by the boards, is a very gray area to me, but it's clear that in any case, the student's well-being and safety should always come first, especially while playing sports where these types of injuries can occur. And these are my references.